practice, its profile, its branding, its marketing, and take something away today which you can go and do when you get back to your practice tomorrow. So I hope you have a fantastic day. It is just wonderful. It is wonderful that Jane and her team have put together this whole day Guerrilla Tactics. And I think the important thing is that we need to keep learning, we need to keep finding out what is the best way forward for us, because we're in a very, very hard market. This year's conference title is Unlocking Your Specialist Potential. That architects are trained and experienced specialists with the skills needed to address some of the special social problems that manifested themselves in this year's summer's riots. Facilitating, visioning, innovating and stimulating ideas. They are our core skills, and we need to shout about it. We need to go out there and let people know what we do. So many people just don't know what architects do, so it's up to us. And she's going to share the next session with 3 speakers, all of whom are already involved in specialisms, and you can see exactly what they are doing, see whether it's for you. Can I hand over to you, Ruth? Thank you very much.
It's also interesting. I know there are people who've become specialised in some of these areas almost by accident. Some of them want to embrace that specialism. Some of them want to do other things.
I'm not sure I'm a guerrilla, really. I'm an infiltrator and corrupter of those strategies which are all laid down in long books signed by government ministers.
So realistically, there wasn't any work in architecture in Australia, so what did I have to do is I had to just go into structural engineering, basically. So when I started working with Richard, I got taken on board as actually someone who understands steelwork, which, to be honest, was a bit of piss and wind, because really all I'd done is actually go around and work on as many different projects as possible, and then pretty much just sort of blagged my way into it. I applied there 5 times before getting a job, and then finally I told them unless they hired me, they'd be missing out. And in the end, I started to work on projects like this, and working in a place like that allowed me to work with some really talented people. You know, you're working in a really high-end environment. Every single person around you is generally pretty good at what they do. On top of that, the clients, they realise that actually, you know, the people that are in the room are there because they've got an opinion. This one's let me to 485-metre high sightseeing towers with sort of like Jetsons-looking lifts that fly up the side. And buildings like Chiswick Park, you know, this project took up 4 years of my life, funny enough. The interesting thing about it was that it was a kit of parts, you know, so when you actually start to work up and understand a kit of parts, it was I guess there that really sort of allowed me to hone my, I guess, passions. You know, all architects work bloody hard to get to where they are. I think when you asked the question before, Ruth, about how you go from working on large-scale things to small-scale things, I don't think really there is a difference. I think you notice the calibre of the people around you. All of a sudden you're the person that everybody asks the questions to, whereas before there was always other people around to help out. And that's been one of my most daunting things. But I guess whether you're working on something quite small or, you know, something quite large, like the monument that we're doing now, realistically speaking, you use the same skill sets. And I think that realistically, to be a specialist, you know, you really need to actually go out there and say, this is who I am, this is what I believe in, this is what I want to do.
Facebook actually has a Twitter account with 1.5 million followers. Whilst we also did some research, Google Plus has a Facebook account with over 45,000 likes. What this highlights is not that everyone's going insane and everyone's jumping on everyone's bandwagon. The simple fact is synchronising your social media is hugely important, and that the sole use of one network is inadvisable. Take a note from the big boys here.
And innovative research is probably going on in absolutely everybody's practice at the moment. It's just a question of recognising it, seeing it as such, and getting it out there.
If architecture is going to be relevant, we need to be changing the operating system of cities. That is where the workflow will be, not the hardware architects, right? Most of us are architects. Why? Because we think designing institutions is going to be the case for a lot of what we do. Designing institutions, not just physical products.
Turn professional, this is an interesting one for me in the future. I had a client who was incredibly clever and went on the internet, did lots of research, and was telling me how to do a building because he could research. 20 years ago, as a professional, you were trusted. If you said it was like, you know, something, then people believe you. Nowadays, there's a commencement of research on the internet, and people challenge you. So again, we have to take on board that.
An overview. I've been working with the RIBA to do a macro picture of what small practitioners are feeling. 72.8% sole practitioners by preference, others due to redundancy, a quarter by redundancy, and then right at the end, the really small one there, is about 3% who were doing practice out of default, not because they wanted to, but because they had got tired of sending CVs, it hadn't come to anything yet, and they said, I may as well try this. 47% didn't have a business plan. 38% they have an unwritten business plan. Almost half there. We've got about 42% of people do find it difficult to work from home. Home offices are lonely. This is the biggest thing after time. The loneliness of it all.
Traditionally, well, you all know me now as Phil Coffey of Coffee Corporation 2044 with all our businesses around the world in Beijing 3, Berlin, capital of Europe, and London on Sea. But in 2011, I was director of Coffee Architects, working on residential, public and urban buildings both at home and abroad. Year, I was also, I was actually bipolar, i.e. I've been to the Arctic and to the Antarctic. And I was amazed by the size, the scale, and the beauty of these places. And also about their fragility. So once you finish your training, you go off in V formation on convoy around the moon, and you will be going to see sites like Apollo 11, the moon landing. There's Apollo circuits, and you go to different Apollos, and that's the human history side of the trips. Or there's the other side of the trip, which is the natural history. So you can go to the poles, you can go to the Aitken Basin, which is apparently the largest crater on the moon. And you can also go to the far side of the moon in the second week, but unfortunately that comes at extra cost, and it's, I think it's 86 billion euros or 5 Chinese yuan. so when you're out and about, you're obviously going to need to sleep because it's going to take longer in the day to be out. So when you're out and about, you're not at home, you're not in the UK, you're not on Earth, you're not just on the moon. You're not just in Virgin Islands, you're no longer in the buggy, you're just in a pod, all alone.
I wasn't particularly put off by the humour, but my boss would have hated it. And he would have been the person who would have probably signed off or not. But some great graphics in there, and the sense of fun was very entertaining for this session.
Both of which, I think it's interesting, practice one talked about process and not proposal, and in many respects, I think one might have approached this in fact exactly that way. Yet, interestingly, the two other practices which did produce a proposal, that proposal almost revealed more about their process as a practice than just talking about what your process is. So obviously, I think within the constraints of doing something on the do, who knows whether those things are deliverable. But the thing is, you see how they're thinking, how they're working, how they're imagining, and it makes you want to have those proposals as realisable. And I think that's where it's become.
Well, as a person sitting down at the floor, I think you three did the most fabulous presentations, and to come up in front of all these people who are your peers to do it, I say well done to all of you. I think that was just amazing, don't you?